Welcome to the Swing Trading with Cycles channel. It's January 17, 2023. We're going to do our update on uranium today. And for those that are new to the channel, I'll give you the short version. We focus on trend analysis here. To do that, we use charts. Charts are just a visual representation of ranges. I should say candles are. Don't get hung up on the chart aspect of it. It's just data. It's telling us, is price trending up? Or is it trending down? Or is it consolidating? Is it just moving in some kind of range so there's no edge? That's how we position ourselves on the right side of the trend, right? We analyze it using price action. So we're looking at the ratio of URA, that's a ETF that tracks uranium miners, to SPY, to get our sense, is this index starting to outperform the S&P? And as we talked about in our last video, I mean, look at this thing. This is a monthly chart. Basically down only since 2011, right? But back in 2020, December 2020 to be exact, we got this big up candle, right? This big up monthly candle took out, look at all these lows, right? Like this last downdraft, this monthly candle took out all of that out. Now, again, this is a ratio chart. It's not an absolute chart, but it's just telling you for this whole period, you know, you can think of it as the URA has been trending lower relative to the S&P 500, which is to say you would have been losing a lot of money in URA relative to being in S&P. And then something changed in December 2020. And since then, we've stayed in this elevated state. You could call this a little bull flag. This teal line here, folks, is the 50 period moving average. This is a monthly chart, so that's your 50-month moving average, very long term. That's a little over 4 years, right? 50 months, 4 years would be 48 months. And so it's we crossed above, and it makes sense. After this huge downdraft, this basically what happened in December 2020 was huge outperformance for uranium. And since then, it's managed to stay there. And you'll see we've kind of been chopping around for many months now, but we are green in January for January 2020. So that's good to know about. And let's look at what the annual candles look like. Look at that. So these are yearly candles. Each candle is 1 year of price action. And so this actually helps to smooth things out a little bit. Although it has been really choppy, they've been green years. Now it's important to note that we've just been inside a range for all of 2022, and we're starting inside that same range. So it will be very interesting once we get a bottom for the uranium miners. I expect something like this for the 2023 candle, right? And that's what we're going to be watching for. That's going to be another correlate. That's going to be another thing that we're going to look for to tell us that the move is real when we finally get that bottom. Because unfortunately, I don't have great news for folks today. There isn't a ton of bullishness on the charts for uranium. In fact, some are showing a clear sign that they're moving into a weekly cycle low. So we're going to just have to take that for what it is, right? So with that, just thinking about, so we just talked about, okay, so we're green for the month. Everything has some cycle to it, right? And so this is your daily chart of that ratio. You can see that was our daily cycle, right? And so we rallied for 23 days, right? That's our daily cycle high. It looks like we're making a daily cycle low. Another way to think about that is on this local time frame, the uranium has just started to underperform. It's just moving into a downtrend, which makes sense because as we're going to talk about, we're seeing many of the uranium miners are moving into a daily cycle low, and for some of them, it's pretty clear that it's a weekly cycle low, and that might actually be foreboding for the rest. So it makes sense that we're seeing this ratio chart start to roll over. Again, this is looking at multiple angles to sort of triangulate, to understand how sure we are of our conclusion to some degree. So now we're going to jump into the uranium miners themselves. We'll go through a smattering of them. Let's look at URA. We'll look at the actual URA chart, the absolute chart. So we'll look at all these. We'll look at URA, CCJ. We'll look at Lightbridge, Energy Fuels, DNN, UEC, Yellow Cake, Elevate Uranium, UROY, SBSW, NextGen. We'll look at Fission Uranium, Fission 3.0 as well. That's one of our favorites. So we're gonna go through all these. We're gonna go through them relatively quickly. So here we go. Okay, so we'll look at the daily chart first, and we'll look at how that's affecting the weekly, and then look at the bigger picture monthly chart. And so again, think about that. If we're getting a weekly cycle low, it means we're actually also getting a daily cycle low. It's just that the daily cycle low is going to be very severe, right? So this is URA. So far, we have a high on day 14, right? That is the January 11th. And it is currently 14, 15, 16, 17, day 17. So very possible that this day 14 high is the daily cycle high. And as always, there is a pinned comment with a ton of background information. It's got the previous uranium videos, broader market videos, but also educational material around cycles analysis 101. So you're clear on what I mean by daily cycle high, weekly cycle high, all that good stuff. And so very likely that this is our daily cycle high. To confirm, we'll need to cross below the low of that candle. So the candle that marks the high, the low of that candle is 2162. So that's URA. So below 2162 would tell us we're moving into a daily cycle low. And then if we look at the weekly chart, right, what we would need to see on the weekly is to move below the low of the weekly, and that is 2143. Right now, it's just an inside week so far. And this is week 1, 2, 3, 4. This is week 4, and so far the high is on week 4, or excuse me, week 3. So you could absolutely see a world where this ends up being a really short weekly cycle rally, or a really left translated weekly cycle, which was our base case when we talked about this weeks ago, right? Where we identified, oh, this low looks like it might be a weekly cycle low, but maybe it's going to roll over. I think this is actually rolling over a little sooner than I thought it would, to be honest. So that's your weekly, and then you can see the monthly is actually still green. Now, because these are in decline, you're going to be watching for if the monthly candle can remain green, and that means understanding where the monthly candle opened. So in this case, the monthly candle opened at $20.19. We're up here at 21.83. So if we pull back to below 2019, the monthly candle will go red, right? Like, that's how it works. That's how a candle goes from green to red or red to green. And as we go into these daily cycle declines, and again, possibly weekly cycle decline as well, that's one of the big things you're going to watch for. Because if this goes red, then that will continue this downtrend on the monthly chart, right? Like, it's a very clear downtrend. You have, you have your clear series of lower highs, lower high, lower high. This going red would become a lower high, right? Because right now it's still green, and so it's still moving higher. But if it were to turn red, then it would now serve as a lower high, and we would expect that it would make another lower low. Like, each of these makes a lower low, and so that's what we would kind of expect. I mean, this actually doesn't make a lower low. We start a period of kind of consolidation here. So that's URA. We'll kind of walk through the rest of these with that same framework in mind. So CCJ, again, so you can see kind of a very similar thing. So CCJ, the weekly low is 24.54. That's what we need to cross below to think that we're having a weekly cycle decline. And on the daily chart, the low to watch is 25.03. That's the low that would give us a daily swing high that would signal the daily cycle decline. It's not super late in the daily cycle. I mean, it could be like day 20 or something, but it's also not early. So this is around the time we would expect a daily cycle decline. And the open price for this one was 22.72. So you want to watch that for going red to green. Let's look at Lightbridge real quick. So Lightbridge, open price on the monthly, $3.85. So in this one's case, it actually only bounced for 2 weeks, right? Like, yes, last week was a high, and that was only the second week of the cycle. And it's now an inside week. Excuse me. And it's now an inside week, so a cross below $4.05 would signal a weekly swing high and a really, really early cycle top. That would be like really ugly. What about energy fuels? So energy fuels bottomed on this week here. So this is week 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is week 5. Was a high last week, 699, 702. No, we made a slight high this week. So we made a slight high on week 5. That actually sets us up, in the bearish scenario for a bearish outside weekly candle, right? Where we make a new high and then we go red. And so we potentially make a new low, and that would be below $6.43. Again, it's the same pattern for all of them, where we're looking for a move below that to tell us the weekly cycle decline has begun. And in the case of energy fuels, you can see they all have a very similar structure, right? Like they've been consolidating for the last few days, and you've got these wicks beneath, and so you got to get below that structure. In this case, it's $6.65 approximately. What about DNN? Oh, yep, same exact structure, uglier candles, right? In this case, I mean, God, really, really ugly doji candles here. So in this case, below 129 is bad news bears, right? And like this looks like it's only actually really early in the daily cycle. Like it's day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, day 7. Yet at the same time, if the whole space is moving into a daily cycle low, I don't think this is going to be spared. And right, I was calling out that how this is just massive consolidation. I mean, man, look at that doji candle for the week. And obviously, we've only traded one day, so not a whole lot has happened. And on the monthly, you can see the consolidation is even more sort of stark. At some point, we're going to kind of rip higher. That said, we do have a higher high on the monthly chart. That's important. Last month's high was $1.24, and we're up here at $1.30. So that makes, to be crystal clear, that makes last month a nice little swing low. And more importantly, it's a higher swing low than this one, right? So important that that holds, right? And you can kind of see this other, like, just this is like an aside. Like you could see a world where this is a inverse head and shoulders, and this is what I kind of point out to folks all the time, is that like you could say like this is the inverse shoulder, this is the inverse shoulder, this is the inverse head, right? And you can almost like the point is that this is your swing low potentially, right, on either side of these lows here, which are higher lows. And so very important that this one holds. So the low for this candle is $1.06. So that becomes a big line in the sand before you find yourself down around 91 cents. So that gives you kind of a good sort of lay of the land. I mean, these are three really strong daily candles, and then it sort of, I mean, this is consolidation, so take it for what it is, right? So UEC, this is one that I was watching more closely, and I expected it to roll over around week 5, and looks like it's rolling over on it actually looks like it's rolled over on week 4, which is last week. So we actually have a weekly swing high as of right now. So the low from last week was $3.83. You can see we closed today, Tuesday, at $3.77. So we do need to close the month there to confirm, but this is not great, right? Like this is even more feeble of a rally than I thought. And the expectation is that we break down below this low, right? Below $3.02 eventually, right? And just kind of sweep these lows, finally take out all those stops, potentially. And on this one, we talked about the monthly going green to red. It already did that. It's already red. So this is kind of leading the rest of the sector. And you can see this one topped out on day 14, like most of them. And obviously, actually day 16. So it ran for a little bit longer, but then made a big swing high on the daily chart right here, which caused a swing high on the weekly that we just saw. So I'm out of this. I've been out of this one. That was a really, this creepy crawly stuff on the weekly is always just kind of, I mean, the risk reward here is just not great. Like when you get a candle like this, obviously you could always have a candle that explodes on the other side of it. Very small gain on this thing. This is yellow cake uranium. So, what an interesting daily cycle here, right? So how many days is that? So high on day 16, it was day 17 today. This looks like a nice little healthy uptrend, I will say. That said, what do we look like on the weekly? So on the weekly, put this on auto, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's week 4, making a new high, but the week is red so far. That said, it's really early, right? We still have several trading days to go. But again, even if a name looks strong, you have to remember the sector, that idea of like sector gravity can kind of pull things down. So you want to be careful. Though I will say this is definitely one of the stronger names. I mean, look at that. That's a clean little uptrend. I mean, if you're one of those trend line guys, right, like you could draw something like, I'm not as much of a trend line guy as you probably can tell from watching this channel. I mean, what does the monthly look like on this guy? Still solidly green. And this thing opened at 374. So stay above 374, we will remain red, or excuse me, green for the month. That said, again, the entire sector has a way of pulling everything down. What about Elevate Uranium? That opened at $3, 36, just 36.5 cents, right? And what are we looking like on the daily? Ooh, yikes. This has a pretty clear swing high on the daily, just like UEC. I'm guessing that's not quite a swing high on the weekly yet, though. Yeah, it's not. So on the weekly, it's still just an inside week. You can see we're just inside the range from last week. But the setup here is that, that was your weekly cycle low. This was week 1, 2. That was week 3, and possibly your top. Can't confirm that until we cross below the low of this candle, which is 39.5 cents. So that's and you're up here at 42 cents right now. And what is did we talk about? Yeah, we talked about the daily. What about UROY? Let's look at UROY. Once upon a time, this looked okay. So this thing has topped out on day 15. So everything's topping out around the same time. Some, made it a little longer. Others, not so much. Big bearish outside candle today, right? Made a new high and then makes a new low. That's a bad sign. It's hovering ominously above the 10-period moving average. Will cross below it. So we're in daily cycle decline. 16, 17, 18, right? Like some of these are more clear that they're in daily cycle decline, and obviously others that they're also in weekly cycle decline. But that tells you something about the sector as a whole, right? So that's day 18. You can see the last cycle was 30 days. The one before that was around 23, 27 before that, 26. So it gives you a sense. You could have another like 7, 8, 10 days of downside. And that's probably similar for the whole sector. I'm speaking kind of broadly here. Ooh, wow. Big swing high for SBSW. Ooh, yikes. Same kind of structure. And this thing mines more than just uranium, so it's a bit more diversified. Yeah, wow. Is that a gap? No, not quite. But big swing high on the weekly for this thing. But this thing was on a different count altogether. This was week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's use our different methods. Yeah, so that was week 16. Again, it's not a pure uranium miner in the sense that it moves with other things as well. It's a more of a general resource name, obviously, but it is in URA and URNM, I believe, as well. So this thing is kind of going its own way, but again, it appears to be in weekly cycle decline, right? And if you think about this, if you kind of zoom out, I guess I'd say this was probably your last daily cycle low, right? And so that's your top on day 18. So that gives you a sense of kind of the micro on that. So this is actually in some ways a kind of a clean short to potentially. What about next gen, NXE? So we'll start with the daily chart, if we will. That was it. So that was our daily cycle low. We had a pretty rough back test here. It held. We have our high so far on day 14. It is day 18. So very similar to many of these names. And on the weekly level, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it is week 5, and our top is week 4 so far. Now, keep in mind, if we really truly do have a top on week 4 for something, or even week 5, that's a lot of downside because these cycles tend to be like 15, 16 weeks at the shortest. And so could set up nice shorts for some of these, not necessarily all of them. And this one, the opening price is $4.40. So you expect that we get below that at some point. Fission Uranium, this is one of the more bullish looking ones. So we have this big, beautiful green monthly candle from November. Last 2 months have just been inside it, just kind of shielded by it almost. So we're still green on the monthly. We opened at 55 cents, so that's an important level to keep in mind. And if we think about the weekly, turn that on to auto. Let's move this a little bit here. So I'd say, this is your last low. Right, that's a nice swing low. Ooh, did we just top out on week 4 and this is week 11? That's interesting. So it's looking like this made a top on week 4, and that would put us now on week 11. So we're pretty advanced in the weekly cycle, and looks like this is another lower high, right? Like this is a high, and then that's your lower high that continues the pattern of lower lows and lower highs. But this big up move almost feels like this was the end of like a decline. So it's like, are we playing like, is this going to be some kind of complex decline where it's doing this and then it makes this big up move to fake people out and then does that, and then maybe something like that? That would be pretty nasty. But again, this is a weekly chart, so you'd see it happening on the daily as well. And finally, Fission 3.0. This is a nice bullish looking one. This also has some bullish fundamental news, which is always awesome. So this is week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So notice most of this move came on this big weekly candle. So this big weekly candle has a huge range, a low of 6 cents and a high of 18 cents. So tripled within that week, and then had some big follow through here as well. And if you look at, so we're on week 11. We made a new high this week, and we can see that new high is coming from this daily candle. So this is day 17, and so I suspect this may actually become our daily cycle high. And so it'll be important to watch the character of this decline. I'd say the line in the sand is really this last low, right? Because this thing went from like 5 cents all the way up to like 27 cents in the span of like a few weeks, right? And you can see that move, the move really happened in like 2 days, right? You have these two big candles that really, this candle takes it from the 6 cents, and then this candle takes it from like 9 cents to like 14, right? These do a lot of the heavy lifting. It had to digest that move, so it made a high on day 26, rolled over into a daily cycle low. So what is that? 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. Yeah, I don't have that written here. I don't know why. So that was on day 31. And so if this is a daily cycle high on day 17, it kind of gives you a rough ballpark range of how much more decline we may have. But again, there's no way to know exactly what levels it's going to decline to, but we know what levels we want it to hold. If we can kind of think about like retracements almost though, like from this move to here was, wow. So that was another, like think about that. It made this huge like 300% move. This downswing was about 30%. And then if you were able to buy close to that, it made another move up 90%. Now, and it could still keep going. Maybe this isn't the daily cycle high, right? But you can kind of think about this move was about 16 cents, let's call it. So what if it gives back 8 cents? So we're up here at 33. And what if we get down to back down to like 25, which would be around this area? That actually sounds very reasonable. And then again, the big line in the sand would be this 18 area. You wouldn't want to give back all of this rally. That would mean you'd fail. It's a failed cycle, downtrend. Now, and of course, maybe you'd find support somewhere around here. This is an extraordinary move. Now, at the very least, we're gonna cross below the 10-period moving average as always. As we say, that's your blue line here. So this one I'm watching closely. Definitely a lot of upside potential in this one. And what is the market cap right now? Okay, so it did cross over to 100 million. So I mean, it's like quadrupled in a few weeks. So it was much smaller before, but still not like massive. I mean, let's just really huge ballpark. What is CCJ? I think it's like 10 billion. Right, so CCJ is about 11 billion. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a frame of reference. So that's our uranium update. We're going to leave it at that. Thank you for watching.